Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Talking TV with my mum, the Geek-Dom weekly review podcast where we discuss geeky/genre TV shows. Not everyone under the sun, but a selection of what we regard as some of the best ones. I hope that you're all doing well, and I hope that you enjoy listening to what we have to say today. So this one is going to be much shorter than we've had over the previous weeks, mainly due to the fact that a lot of the programs have ended and we're waiting for new things to kick in to take their place. So today we're basically going to talk about Lucifer and we're going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. What we're going to do though, because those of you that listen regularly will know that we've been doing Lucifer week to week, so one episode a week, even though the whole series is available to watch right now on Netflix. But because we've got less stuff to talk about this week, we're going to do 2 episodes of Lucifer along with the new episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then going forward we're going to have some new stuff because, for example, today the complete series of Good Omens, the Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman comedy horror supernatural series with David Tennant and Michael Sheen, is going to be available. So we'll be watching that, so we'll be able to start adding that into the rotation as of next week. But yeah, as of today, it's just going to be these 2 things. So the first thing I want to do is just to say, if you enjoy what we do here, please could you leave a like? That would be fantastic. We'd be so grateful to see your support. And also leave comments, because we love hearing what you think and what your thoughts are. If you've got any different opinions to us on some of these programs, it would be great to get a conversation going, so please do that down below. And also subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. We want to grow this geekdom and make it bigger and bigger and better, so if you can subscribe, that would be really, really great. There's a description box which will tell you a bit about the podcast. It's got timestamps in. Not that you'll probably want to skip too much this week because there's so little, but in the future you'll always be able to find certain sections you can jump to. And also in the description box is the link to my Twitter, so you can come and continue chatting to me on there. And also links to my donation mediums. So I have Ko-fi and Patreon if you would like to donate to help support the podcast and the growth of the channel in general. That's all the housekeeping. Let's get underway. I'm going to say hello to my co-host. So hi there, Mum. How you doing?
Hello, Dom. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Great news about Good Omens.
Yes, it is. And the trailer looks so good,
I've been seeing the trailer all the time. It's like, when is it going to start? Yay.
Yes, it looks great. I'm really looking forward to getting into that.
Yeah, me too.
So, and you're still a little bit under the weather. You've still got a bit of lingering sort of cold virus type thing.
Yeah, hopefully I won't. I think my coughing phase is out of the way, but hopefully, I apologise if I do cough, listeners, but unfortunately when you've got this, you can't do much about it. I've got cough sweets at the ready and everything, and water and stuff, so hopefully we get through it without too many noises that aren't supposed to be on there.
By the virtue of editing, I should hopefully be able to eliminate any sort of noises like that if possible. So I've been.
I just apologise in advance just in case. So at least you know what the crazy noise was. But I will try not to die on live podcast.
Yeah, please don't do that. I have a few things. So last episode we did a little bit of a shout out to some of the people that are conversing with us. So I'd like to do a similar thing again this week because we've got a few bits and pieces to discuss. So the first thing, this is a positive comment aimed pretty much directly at you, to be honest, is my buddy who is Skippy, one of my Australian gamer friends. He sent me a message in regards to the podcast and said that it was a really good listen, and he's really enjoying it. And he also said that you sound like an awesome lady.
Oh, thank you, Skippy.
So I thought that was really nice.
Very good name from Australia. I would never have guessed. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
And he then went on to say, I'm not surprised by that fact because her son is an awesome dude. So he gave me a nice compliment as well. So I was like, oh, that's really nice.
I didn't get all the glory then. Boo.
Well, no, but
Love you really, Skippy.
it was mainly put towards you.
Yes,
He had an idea actually about us taking the podcast up a notch. So it's something I'm going to look into because a lot of people that do podcasting, not just the ones that are on YouTube, but in general, they'll put their podcasts on other mediums. So he said, "Is your podcast on iTunes?" And I said, "No, I haven't done anything like that." And then he said, maybe it's an idea, from an exposure point of view, it couldn't hurt. And I know that there's several other services outside of iTunes for this kind of thing. So I'm going to do a bit of a look into that. And watch this space, people, because potentially we may take the podcast to new heights by having it available on your streaming podcasting service, whatever you want to call it, of choice in the future, and not just available on YouTube. So I'm going to look into that because it was something I hadn't really given much thought, but then when it was suggested to me, I thought, yeah, maybe. I mean, we're on episode 12 now, so it's not like we're brand new to this. So maybe we look into doing something like that going forward. So I'm going to do a bit of research and, yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Excellent.
So then that'll hopefully bring us to a bigger audience.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
So that was that from Skippy. We also had Double Jump Gaming, Will, who we mentioned in last week's. He's also said some bits about the podcast. He said, firstly, he was really chuffed because of the fact that we mentioned him. So now he's getting 2 weeks in a row.
I will. We mentioned you again.
And he said, in regards to last week's, he said, "Great cast again, my man and mum. I don't watch any of the shows in the podcast, in last week's podcast, but you go through them so well, I'm really going to give a few a try, especially Lucifer."
Yay!
And he said he kind of snubbed it when it first came out, but us talking about it here has piqued his interest in going back and watching it. So that was quite cool.
Our enthusiasm, you see, it's our enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's quite good. And also another one of my buddies on YouTube, Blue Line Gamer, he chimed in and said that he hasn't actually seen any of the shows again that we discussed in last week's podcast, but he did really want to see Lucifer. And he said the reason being was just at the time when some of these shows came out, they didn't really appeal to him. But again, by virtue of us talking about them, it's piqued his interest. So he's going to go back and potentially take a look at some of them. And again, specifically Lucifer.
Wow.
There's also another guy, Speedy from Beyond Useless Gaming. He also is a big fan of Lucifer, and he said that, it's a great show and he really, really enjoys it. So
Brilliant.
A lot of love for Lucifer, a lot of general comments. I mean, it's like Plastered Koala. He's also a big Lucifer fan. He said that was one of the things that he really enjoyed about the podcast was us talking about Lucifer. So yeah, so it's cool. So we've had a little bit of feedback in regards
Thank you,
to
we
the
appreciate that.
podcast. So that's good. So hopefully that'll get bigger and bigger as we go forward. We'll get more interaction and more people. And as you've just heard here, good folks, we will mention you. We will shout you out. All these people that I've just mentioned, they've got YouTube channels. Who is Skippy? Double Jump Gaming, Beyond Useless Gaming, Blue Line Gamer. They are all YouTubers. They've all got really cool channels. Go and have a look at them. And we will shout you out. We'll plug
give them
you.
some love too.
We'll mention you. If you support us, we'll support you in return. So thank you guys for that. And yeah, that's just something for you others listening. If you are YouTubers, or even if you're not, if you're just general public, we'll still mention you. If you leave us a good comment or something.
Exactly. It's not just exclusive to YouTube people, like YouTube people. I'm not a YouTube person, and I get a hello every week.
Yeah, you do. You get to be on the podcast.
Yeah, and my dog.
And your dog, yeah. So good feedback. Nice to get some comments and some interaction. Now that we've done that, we're going to move on, and we're going to discuss the first episode. So this was the third episode of the new season of Lucifer, and it was called "Oh, Ye of Little Faith, Father." So would you like to begin?
Yes. Well, obviously, we ended last week where the priest had gone to see Lucifer and told him something about Chloe. Basically, he's now turned it all around and saying to Lucifer, I didn't think you're the devil. And he was basically saying that Chloe had been talking to him,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's warning Lucifer again about Chloe.
Yeah.
Clever move.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it?
What is his game? What's he up to?
It was interesting when he showed Lucifer his card, and it was like, working for this like Vatican special division, and Lucifer was like, oh, rather interesting. And he sort of said, this is what she has said to me. I'm very disturbed by what she's saying and what potentially she may do. So I want to warn you that she's deluded. I don't believe that that's who you are. I think you're just a normal person. But she's got it into your head that you're the devil. And it was basically just like, watch your back. Watch your back, because she's got it in for you. And it was like, and he's sowing these seeds of doubt in Lucifer's mind about her integrity and her friendship and her sort of being honest with him, I suppose. So yeah,
it's quite interesting. What is he up to? Well, the crime of the episode was a rocket scientist.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, who was also an ex-gang member.
Well, they called Los X. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I was more focused on actually the other stuff that was going on. So anyway, that is our crime thing. Let's go talk about the other stuff, and then we'll marry in the actual crime. So we had an amusing bit with Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her mothering session.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
Well, they call like Le Mans classes and stuff. They call them, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and that didn't go very well, did it? Bless her. That was hilarious. With May's like, what she just couldn't cope, basically, could she?
Oh, amazing.
Well, she was like, oh, that's so
May's
funny.
reaction to all of this is great, though, and also the other person whose reaction to all this is quite funny is Amendiel's.
Oh, all his daddy help.
Yeah, but
that's so
the fact
funny.
that he proposed to her because he felt.
He thought this is the right thing to do.
I want to be there for you. I want to support you. Then he like got down on one knee and asked if she would marry him, and she's like, "What are you doing? No, we don't need to do that. You don't need to do that." And she's like, "All I want is support. I want you here to hold my hand. That's it."
Yeah, he looked very sad, didn't he? That fact, it's like, no, but there's more to it. It's like, no. So anyway, going back to the thing with the Lucifer and the priest, he decided he was going to go and tell the priest. They didn't believe him, and the priest told him about the vial that he gave Chloe and what she was going to do with it.
And he described it in quite a lot of detail, didn't he? They said like the shape of the bottle and that she's got this, and he was like, "Oh, really?" And then what did he refer to? What was it that he referred to that's like fictional in relation to this potion about sending him to hell? I can't remember what it was now.
No, I can't remember.
He made
he made some little quip about it, didn't he? But also he's suspicious now. So she's going, I want to take you somewhere. And she's saying, oh, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. And we're all going, whoa, what's going on? She took him to the soup kitchen.
Yes, that's right.
We're going to help the homeless today. We're going to do the soup kitchen.
And this was the thing all the way through. Again, this is where the theme tied into the crime, because there was a lot of in this episode of being different to what people think you are and people's capacity to change, and how just because you went down one path doesn't mean that you can't go down a different path in the future. So her doing all of this was her going, well, you could go and do acts of kindness. You could do all these generosity things because you're the devil, because you know, everybody thinks that you're evil and you do all these bad things, but you say you're not, and I want to believe you're not. So let's show this. Let's go out and do charity work. Let's do this, that, and the other. And it was in this effort to do that. And that obviously tied into the main crime, because you had this counselor guy who had worked with both the scientist and also the mechanic that ended up getting killed as well, because there was a second murder. And he was also an ex-gang member. And they spoke to the counselor, and he was like, I helped them get out of that life. I helped them get from, was it Colombia or somewhere they'd come from originally? And he was like, I helped them get away from all that and get into proper jobs and, you know, get away from drugs and all of this kind of thing. And they spoke to him. And again, he spoke a lot about people changing and people's ability to be different to what society thinks they are and stuff. And every time there was little comments like that, she would look at Lucifer, or Lucifer would give her a sideways glance or whatever and think, oh, this is similar to our behind the scenes stuff that's going on. So they had that thread going through. But they weren't really getting anywhere with this case, were they? Because they were trying to find things, but they were coming up against dead ends and things, and they weren't really getting very far. So then Dan was also looking into it, and Dan's gone a bit, he's gone a bit mean and badass now, hasn't he?
Yeah. So he got Maze to help him,
and
didn't
they
he?
decided,
Go and see the gang.
they decided to do things off the books, didn't they?
Mm.
So they went to the gang's headquarters, and that was really funny because he walked in and he's all like, "Hey, hi, I'd like to speak to your boss," and he was like insulting the gang members, and he was saying all these things, and they were like, "Hey, you got some guts coming around, you got some cojones coming around here, pig," and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, well, if I'm going to have to get into a fight with you guys, so be it." And he was really cocksure of himself, and they're like, "This guy's got a death wish."
Yeah.
And then Maze just sort of jumped out from the roof or something and landed, and then she starts kicking ass, and the pair of them are then just beating everybody up, and they're fighting side by side and throwing people here, there, and everywhere, and breaking arms and all sorts of great fight sequence stuff. And then when it looked like they'd got to the boss guy, a whole bunch more people came in, and they looked at each other and they're like, "Oh, here we go." So that was really funny, because then they cut away from that scene, and when they came back, all the gang members were laid out, so they'd obviously taken care of everybody that had came in.
Yeah,
and
basically.
then they questioned the boss guy, and he was like, "Hey, well, this is nothing to do with us, and they left here. Yeah, okay, we don't like it when people leave us, but we weren't involved in their murder. It's this counselor guy that you should be looking at. He's shady and all of this lot." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Well, he was the guy that found the body, wasn't he? Wasn't that bit? Because he was the guy that found the body, and something about Lucifer, wanting Lucifer to hurt him.
Well, yeah, that was later on. Later on, when they got all the information back that this Oscar guy, this counselor, was maybe not a goodie, that maybe he was somehow complicit. They had that bit where Lucifer was sort of talking to him about punishing, and you wanted to punish them, didn't you, and stuff. And they got baited, because in the meantime, before all of that happened, before Chloe and Lucifer went to confront Lucas? Who's Lucas? Oscar. He had it out with her about the stuff to do with the priest, because
he found the vial on her, didn't he?
And so he had it out with her, and just at that moment, that's when she got the phone call from Ella to say about Dan's tip-off. And so she was like, "We need to continue this conversation later. I want to explain everything to you. It's not what you think."
Yeah.
And he's like, now he's had what's been told to him by the priest confirmed. He's now completely on guard, feeling, "You betrayed me. You betrayed my trust. I thought we had something. I can't trust you now." So they're in the car, and he's making all these little quips about betrayal and about people not being who they make out they are, and things like this, and not being able to rely on your partner and stuff. So when they get to the guy's house, Lucifer gets out the car, goes to the house, rips off one of those bars, like a lot of American houses have those like outside security bar things on the doors, rips one off, goes inside, and then like seals the door up so she can't get in. So he's going to take matters into his own hands. And when he walks in, the guy sat on the chair, and I thought he was going to try, like, in the process of getting ready to kill himself or something.
Yeah, it looked like that, didn't it? It looked like he's like, "I've had enough now. I've done wrong."
But instead, he was reading from the Bible.
Yeah.
And Lucifer said, "I know it was you. You didn't care about them, did you? You didn't really believe they would change. You just wanted to make their lives miserable." And he was saying all of this, again, talking from his own experience, but putting it in the context of the case. And the guy said, "Yep, you got me. I found out that the girl, Susan, was slipping, and that she was backtracking. These people can't change. They're scum. They need to be eradicated. They need to be punished. And now, because of what I've done, I need to be punished. So punish me, Lucifer." And Lucifer's like, how do you know who I am? It's like, "Show me your true face." And he was trying to get him to show him his face. He was trying to get him to exact his devil punishment on him. And Lucifer was really taken aback by all of this, of like, "Who are you? How do you know me? How do you know what I'm up to?" And so then he was throwing the guy around and, trying to get answers out of him. And then Chloe got in the house just in time, and then she got Lucifer to back down, and then the guy looked at his mirror, didn't he? And he said, "I'm sorry,
I failed."
And then he killed himself.
Yeah.
And they were like, "What the hell's going on?" And they were looking baffled about this. So they're like, "Why is this happening?" So then it flashed forward, and it was like then it was a crime scene. So Ella was there, and they were all investigating. And Lucifer was still at a loss of like, he knew who I was, and he said this to Chloe. He wanted me to reveal myself. He knew what I am. How did he know? And then they
realised the mirror was a two-way mirror.
He had looked at the mirror and spoke to the mirror before he killed himself. So Lucifer picked up a chair and threw it at the mirror, and it broke, and there was a room behind it, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's like chairs in there. It's like somebody been sat in there watching. Basically, he was saying, whoever it was for them, I failed. Basically, he failed to get Lucifer to reveal who he was, basically.
So they then did a check on the house to find out who owned the house, and it turned out the house was owned by the Catholic Church. And then everything fell into place, and it was like all of this was a setup. Everything that happened in this episode was set up. So all the things were there to appeal to Lucifer's need to punish, for his desire to go after people and make them pay for things. And it was all designed to expose him, to sow the seeds of dissent between him and Chloe, in order to cause him to basically lose control, go and murder this guy effectively, and then that way there would be proof of, look, he's the devil. This is and it was the priest all along that was behind it all, Father Kinley.
Yeah, he set it all up. The whole thing had been set up, even the thing with the counsellor, everything. He was behind the whole shenanigan, basically, wasn't he?
Did it turn out that he had met the counsellor years before in Colombia or something when he was doing missionary work, and he had helped this guy, and so this guy, his life had been turned around and stuff, because I think he was also...
So basically he owed him.
He was also like an ex-gang member or drug addict or something, so he was in debt
that's
to
it,
the priest, so he was willing to do anything for the priest, willing to do anything in the name of the church. So when Father Kinley came to him, he was happy to oblige and be a part of this plot.
And did he not get another priest involved because he wanted somebody else to witness it, so he could go, I was correct, this is the evil and all this stuff. So this other guy was watching behind the mirror, and when they came to confront them, the other guy denounced him, basically, didn't he?
Yeah, he was like, I assume he was a bishop or a cardinal, because Kinley kept referring to him as Your Excellency. So he was clearly like a higher ranking member of the church, so maybe the bishop or a cardinal or something like that. And he was completely taken aback by these actions. And so then when they turned up at the church to confront them, he said, I'll give a statement, because what he's done, it doesn't represent the church. I can't be complicit in this.
They excommunicated him.
Yeah, because he then went to visit him later on in the cell, didn't he? And he was like, I've shown you, I did all of this to prove, because basically it was interesting, because I don't know whether he meant the church doesn't believe in the devil, or whether the church doesn't believe the devil is on earth. One or the other. I wasn't entirely sure what he meant there, but he said, the Vatican didn't believe, and I wanted to give them proof to show them, all of this is real, and that's why I set all of this up. Yeah, okay, 2 people died, but they were sacrificial for a greater purpose. So he was justifying the murders by saying, this was all done in the name of God's name. This was done in order to draw out the devil so that we could banish him.
And also...
the other priest, the bishop, was like, you've gone too far, and I'm afraid that you're no longer a part of the church. The orders have come from on high. You've been excommunicated.
Yeah, but also, he was working along the path that Chloe was Lucifer's first love, and basically he's thinking, well, if she isn't his first love, obviously that would have brought him out, devil out of him. Who is it?
And this was, the priest said that, didn't he? The other priest said, Kinley, how do you know, why are you so sure that Chloe Decker is
she's
the first love? There could be another. And then it cut to the club.
Yeah, and some young bird turns up, and was she looking for him, I think?
Well, she comes in.
She was just mingling in, wasn't she?
Wide-eyed and
prominent,
very sort of floaty, airy-fairy, looking around like everything was
naively looking.
Yeah, very, excited and marveling at everything in front of her. And she wandered to the bar, and she stood at the bar. And then when the barman came over and asked her what she'd like, she said an apple teeny. And it was like,
Yeah.
And straight away, I was like, I know who this is. I know.
Yeah. Well, that was only because you knew he was coming
Yeah, but also
it.
it was kind of obvious. It was the whole thing about the first love, the apple teeny. I was like, apple, interesting.
Well, also, yeah, the devil and the
Yes.
Adam and Eve, yeah.
And
So,
yeah,
like,
so that was that.
that's how, it ended, wasn't it?
Yeah. So now we will just flow straight into the next one. So that takes us on to episode 4, which was called All About Eve.
Oh,
and
really?
yes, indeed, it turns out that this girl that showed up at the end is indeed Eve, off of the Bible, off of the Old Testament.
Yes.
So she is the actual Eve. And just a quick thing about, when we point out notable people that have been in other shows we've watched, she is actually from, the final season of Prison Break they made, where they were in the Middle East.
Yes.
And there was a girl that they befriended who was the leader of, they were like freedom fighters.
It's also out of another program I used to watch where she was like some sort of grifter. She's a great actress. She's in lots of stuff.
Because I kept looking at her and thinking, you look really...
I knew her straight away.
And so I then looked her up because I was like, I need to know who she is because she's so familiar, but I can't place her. And as soon as I saw Prison Break, I went, oh, of course she was. She was the leader of the resistance, the freedom, Israeli freedom fighters or whatever they were.
That's right, yeah. That's what most people know her of. But obviously, I watched that program. I can't even remember what it's called now, but where she was like some sort of scam artist. But she's good in that as well. So I've seen her in lots of things. She always pops up. Well, she's very beautiful, isn't she? You must admit. She's beautiful. But great actress. So, yeah, I was like, yo, it's her. But, yeah, so she turned up. So was she still in the... What happened then? Was she still in the club when he got back from somewhere?
Well, I think... So the beginning of the episode, it didn't pick up directly where it ended, did it? It started out with the news that there was the murder case of somebody called Pablo Silva. And this Pablo Silva guy was a jeweler. He had returned from the Middle East with something. What was it called? The desert. Oh
yeah, he got off an aeroplane, didn't he? He had something. He was bringing it back, wasn't he? And there was an aeroplane, and he was on the ground. It was like a light aircraft, not like a big plane. That's right. That's how it started.
And it was something to do with this necklace that he'd got for this guy. I have a feeling he's been in it before because he seemed kind of familiar. The setup when they went to visit him later seemed very familiar. And obviously the fact that Lucifer talked about knowing this guy. So I feel like, I'd like to go back actually and look and see if he has been in a previous episode. Because this guy was called Bashir Al-Fassad, I think his name was, if that's right.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think maybe this guy's been in it previously in one of the earlier seasons, but I couldn't remember exactly. So that was the beginning part of there's been a murder. It's to do with a precious, a jewel or a necklace or something, and it's tied to this guy that is known to Lucifer. So we get the whole bit in the bar, and it did pick up directly. It was Lucifer coming downstairs in his dressing gown to come and take a couple of bottles of drink, because the other thing that had happened that we didn't mention actually at the end of the last episode was after all the revelations of Chloe working with Kinley's plan to send him to hell, the fact that Chloe was involved in it all, even though she changed her mind and went against it, Lucifer felt so betrayed and so, rejected by Chloe, and he was like, you're never going to be able to accept me for who I really am, that he decided to cut ties with her, and he said, I don't think we should work together for a while. And so he went into a slump. So he was obviously doing what he does when he's in a slump, and he was drinking and stuff. So he came down to the bar to get some drinks. The barman had said, we might need them. And he was like, I need them more. And as he was going to go back upstairs, he noticed all this commotion on the dance floor, and he was like, what's going on over there? So you saw this scene where it was like intercutting between the dance floor and him, and he's making his way through the people until eventually he came face to face with Eve, who was dancing away in the middle of a big crowd of people, center of attention, and he was like, Eve? And then she's like, hey, Lucy. And it's like, oh my goodness. And so then it cut straight away, didn't it? It cut from their confrontation. I think that was when it did the Lucifer opening music. And then they were in back up in his penthouse, and he was asking, why are you here? What are you doing here? And, why are you on Earth? And she said she got bored of heaven And she said, look,
Yeah.
I'm probably the human that's I've been in heaven longer than any human. And it's just so tedious. It's just everybody is so nice. Everything is so repetitive. There's no real excitement. And I've been away from Earth for such a long time. I found a way out. I found a way to get out of heaven, and I escaped back to Earth. So I'm here because I want stimulation, and I want excitement, and I want to experience how the world's changed and see all of the different things. And most importantly, I wanted to see you again. And there was a little allusion there to their past relationship. They didn't go into it explicitly at that time, but it was like talking about how they had a history which, on the surface you just go, oh yeah, the biblical history, Garden of Eden, he was the snake, she took the apple, the first sin was created. That's the illusion there that's being made about their pre-existing relationship. So, but more got built upon later on in the episode. So she was, so he was really surprised to see her. But then he was like, because of everything that's going on with Chloe, he said, well, that's great, it's lovely to see you and stuff, but, you can't, I can't really do this right now. I'm going through...
Can't stay here.
She said about stay. Do you have anywhere to stay? Well, no, I was hoping you could help me with that. Yeah, sure, no problem. I know so-and-so over at this hotel, and she's like, oh, okay. And so she was thinking that she was going to get to stay there, but he sent her off.
Put her in a taxi.
Yeah, he put her in a taxi, and as he was saying goodbye to the driver shot him in the face.
Yeah.
And it was like, what?
And he said something about the necklace. It was like, oh.
But obviously,
okay.
He's the devil, so it didn't kill him. So she was really like, oh my God, she rushed to him. And then he sat up and he was like, oh, I need some paracetamol or something. Because even though it didn't obviously damage him, it gave him a headache. And he knew the guy, that was then the link that he knew this guy works for this Bashir guy.
Yeah.
And so he's then, I think you need to explain to me what's going on here, to Eve. There's a bit, you're not telling me everything. Yeah. So she's like, well,
Well, basically she stowed away on the plane, didn't she? She got on the plane from wherever she appeared and she snuck away, and they think she took the necklace because she was the only other person that could have been at the time. So they were looking for her, basically. That's what happened there. We just had a quick nip over to Maze, Linda and Amen at the ultrasound.
Oh my God, that was so funny. Because she was freaking out, wasn't she? She was freaking out about the baby and all this stuff, because there was that really funny conversation with Maze as well, where Maze was saying, I've read all these things about, is it true that when a human produces another human, it erupts in a shower of blood and all of this kind of stuff? And she's like, it sounds amazing. And she's like, I don't really want to have this conversation with you, Maze. And
the nurse went to put the gel on her to do the ultrascan, and Maze nearly killed her. What are you doing to her?
Off, didn't she?
She goes, we need this so we can see the image of the child. It's like, oh, okay. And then when it came up on the screen, did he ask her, did it have wings?
Well, she said about the protrusion.
What did they say?
She said about the protrusion, and she said, so it's clearly a boy. And then he said, but where are the others? And she was like, others? And he said, yeah, I was expecting at least 3. And she's like, the ultrasound lady was sort of what they called, obstetrician or whatever. She's like, they don't normally have that many, looking like this is a bit weird. And he's like, and I'm looking for wings. And oh yes, well, because all parents think their baby's going to be a little angel and all the, ha ha ha, so funny, aren't they weird, sort of thing Linda's doing. And they're just stood there dead stony faced as if to say, this isn't a joke, we're looking to see if there's any angel wings. But no, you'd have obviously the bit where she was asking Linda previously about all these things about do you use this thing and do you use that thing, and she was like, oh, we use them in hell, and about the milking device that you attach to your body. And then she said, I used one of them once on a guy, and she said, you should have seen the size of his. And she's like, okay, I don't need to know anymore, Maze.
Oh, it's so hilarious.
And then you had the whole bit, the bit in the house as well, where she was stressing about the ceiling fan.
Oh,
yeah,
the bubble
later
wrap.
on, obviously we saw that later where everything got covered in bubble wrap, but she was stressing because Amendia was trying to talk to her about all of this, about the possibility of it being like a hybrid baby and stuff. And she was stressing, thinking, if it's got wings, what if it flies up in the air and gets caught in the fan and all of this kind of stuff? So yeah, so then they baby-proofed the house, or baby angel-proofed the whole house, didn't they? Oh, it was so funny.
Although afterwards, like you looked the scene afterwards, you went in the house, it was like the ceiling fan and like everything, anything that it could hurt itself on. Normal babies do hurt themselves on, but like because it could fly, like bash into this. Oh, it was a scream. I was laughing so much when I watched it.
Amendiel had also mentioned to Lucifer, he told him the truth, didn't he, about the fact that Linda was pregnant. And Lucifer, when he went to see her in her office, he sort of spoke about it a little bit and about being like, you know, basically being like an uncle sort of thing. And the fact that this is, as far as they know, anyway, this is unprecedented. And Lucifer was sort of saying, well, maybe it happened when you lost your wings. So even though you are an angel and you were an angel, there was a brief period where you weren't technically an angel.
Yeah, that's why
it happened, that's how it happened. But we still don't know. We still don't know if it's just going to turn out to be a regular human baby or whether it will be a celestial baby instead. We will have to wait and see how that develops. But yeah, that whole section was just so entertaining and so funny. It was great.
So going back to the case then, so Chloe and Dan went to see the Arabs to do with the case, one of which was an old mate of Lucy's.
Right, Bashir, yeah.
So they had been to see him, they left, and as they got there, Lucifer arrived just after they'd left. So then he got into some sort of, he had a big heated discussion with them, didn't he? And then they had some sort of row when there was like a bar fight or something.
So basically when Chloe and Dan went to see him, he mentioned, oh, you're the detective that works with Lucifer. And she's like, of course, you know Lucifer and all of this stuff. And then she hedged her bets a little bit on the fact that he might owe Lucifer a favour. So she said, well, I'm working, you know, Lucifer's sick at the moment, so I'm here in his stead to call in that favour that you owed him. So it was about information, and it was about who the guy was, what the relationship was, the fact that why would Bashir want to kill him? Because he had something, he had this necklace. He was like, why would I want to kill him? You know, the guy was bringing me something. I have no reason to kill him. So he gave her all this information. So then when Lucifer and Eve came out of hiding, and it was interesting as well because of the fact they hid, that was then started tipping off Eve onto the fact that, oh, Lucifer doesn't want to see this lady. Why is that sort of thing?
Yeah.
And then when Lucifer went to speak to him, he said, well, the favour's already been cashed in. And Lucifer's like, what? Oh, yeah, the lady detective, she said she was doing it on your behalf. And he's like, sort of thing, like, I did not authorise that. So he was then trying to talk to him and get information from him. They came up with a deal, didn't they? Which was okay, well, let's make a new deal. If we find the necklace and give it to you, because that was the other thing.
Because they were threatening to kill her, weren't they? So basically, had to find the necklace. Because she was on the plane. She was the main suspect in their eyes. If he can get the necklace back, they'll won't touch her.
So that
basically.
was that. So he gave him a clue about the fact that there was this other girl on the plane, and that's who they needed to go looking for. Now, in the meantime, the police had actually identified this video that showed the plane, some footage, and it was the guy Bashir. And on the plane, it was the guy showed them, didn't he? That's right. He showed them the footage from Pablo had sent him with the two girls, and obviously Eve was in the background, and there was this other girl. So they were aware of her too. So they went off to try and find this girl, and they ended up, they went, as you say, they went to a bar, and they were looking for this woman. I think what was her name? I can't remember what her name was now, but she was a grifter. So she was there. She was basically been trying to grift and trying to get what she could out of these people. But she was like, I don't have it, though. I don't have the necklace. I'm not there. And she was like, I haven't got it. I gave it away, or I sold it to somebody, and it's going to go up for auction. And then things got a bit hairy in the bar, and then we had a really cool bar fight where Lucifer was using pool balls and pool cues and chairs, and there was that really cool bit with the pool ball where he was fighting the guy. He got the ball off one table, set it up on the other table, punched the guy a bit, spun him round by his coat, slammed him straight into the pool ball so it knocked him out, And then threw stuff up in
yeah.
the air. Oh, the triangle, threw that up in the air, used that, smack, smack, smack in a guy's face, put it around his head, threw him through a window. It was like a real knockdown slobber knocker, wasn't it?
It was going really well, and then Chloe turned back up, and
Just
he got
to the
injured.
point where a guy was trying to stab him with a snapped in half pool cue. And so because she was there, it injured him. And then he was none too happy to see her. And then she looked over, and obviously Eve was there watching all this in exchange. Who's your friend? It doesn't matter. And everything like that. He really didn't want any part of anything. It's like, we're working the same case. I'm not working anything with you. I have my own reasons. And he left, and it was like, yeah, we're not on the same page here, Chloe, I'm afraid. So they tracked down this auction, and they both parties were both going to be going there trying to get this necklace back and try and take down whoever was behind it and from Lucifer's perspective, this time he wasn't trying to solve a murder. He was literally trying to get the necklace and free Eve. Whereas Chloe and Dan are trying to solve the murder. Yeah. So, what happened when they went to the auction?
Right, so they were, with the necklace, it was like you have in a fashion parade. Yeah. So they go, there's the necklace. So they planned they were going to go and get it off that woman. I think they actually did acquire it, didn't they? But obviously Chloe and her gang were there as well. And they went to arrest the woman, and the woman, I haven't got the necklace. They had the necklace. It all got a bit not nasty, a bit uncomfortable, didn't it? Because obviously they confronted each other. Basically, Lucifer wasn't prepared to give up what they had, but that is the crime. That is not yours. And you fill in the blanks on that one, because it got a bit. They were sort of like, we need this. I need this, basically, more than you. It was something. It got a bit like nasty with it, didn't it?
It was just continuation of him saying like how he's been betrayed and let down, and he said, "There's somebody else that I need to help. It's not all about you, detective." And Eve, meanwhile, she snuck backstage, and she put the necklace on because they said, "Look, we need to keep this going to a point until we can draw out the person who's responsible." So they said, "Look, we'll do a long con. So Eve will go on stage, she'll wear the necklace. Lucifer will sit in the auction, Lucifer will bid and try and outbid so he can get." So it's like, we'll both get what we want. I will get the necklace, but because of it being a criminal thing, in the end I won't have to pay for it. But I'll get the necklace, or so he thought. Anyway, he was thinking that was his perspective. And they would draw out whoever was really behind all of this, because it would be the person benefiting from the auction, from the sale of the necklace. So
and it turned out to be the guy's
partner,
Toby.
And he said, "You don't realise how much I put into all of this operation, and I needed this money. There was so much going on, and he was a really shoddy business partner. So this was the only way I could guarantee that I would make my fortune." So he was completely justifying everything that had happened as a result of, basically, he's an idiot. I was the brains in the operation. I wanted the money to myself. It was greed, really, wasn't it? It was just came down to greed.
Yeah. And then when they got him, she didn't keep her end of the deal, did she, Chloe? She said, "No, you can't have it. That's evidence." And he was not very happy about that.
"I really need this, detective." And she's like, "I'm sorry, it's evidence. I can't." And he was like, "You don't understand." She's like, "I'm sorry, Lucifer, I have to follow protocol." So he was thinking, in his mind, he's probably thinking, after everything that's happened between us, after all the times I've helped you, and then after your recent betrayal, when I tell you that I need something, you still aren't willing to help me.
Yeah. So he left really despondent, really annoyed about it, and then found out that Eve got the necklace back. She'd pinched it back, hadn't she? She wasn't going to tell him, was she?
She thought the longer she could go without telling him about the necklace, the longer they could...
More he'd want to protect her and keep her by his side and all that stuff.
So then she revealed the truth, and then he was really angry with her, because he's like, "Oh, another person that's lying to me, and another person that's got..." And he's like, "Why are you really here? What do you really want?" And he got really annoyed with her, because he's thinking, "I've already had this with one woman in my life, and now you show back up." Yeah. And then that's when it was revealed that they had a pre-existing relationship, that it wasn't in the Bible, we just get the temptation with the apple, but the reality is that they actually had a relationship. She was in love with Lucifer, and the two of them were a couple, but then she was forced into this kind of arranged marriage, the very first arranged marriage in human history with Adam. And it's like, I was made for him. I was never given a choice. I wasn't allowed to fall in love with him. I was created for the sole purpose of being his mate. And she's like, he's a nice guy, but we never fell in love properly, and he's really boring, whereas you were exciting, and you made me happy, and all of this stuff. And then that's when she revealed, she was like, the real reason I came back was to be with you. I want to be with you because I love you, you're my first love. And then he did what he did with Chloe, and he said, how can you love me, and stuff. And she got him to reveal his devil face, and he was stood there.
She wanted him like that,
he was
didn't she?
expecting the same revulsion that he got from Chloe, but instead she started to touch his face, and then she kissed him because she was like,
and then Chloe
I accept
walked
you
in.
for who you are. And just at that moment, Chloe had decided, I need to go and see Lucifer, because who was it she spoke to that said basically, oh, it was Ella, wasn't it? That Ella tipped her off that you need him in your life, you know, that you're not the same without him. And so Ella convinced her, you need to go and speak to him. So she was like, yeah, I do. But then she turned up at the point where him and Eve were having their tender moment. So it's like, oh, you're too late, Chloe.
Yeah, she walked in. It's like, okay. It's like, no, poor Chloe. Never mind.
So there we go. So that was that. The only other thing I have to mention that was really funny, just going back briefly to the whole Maze and Mendiel and Linda bit, is the fact that after talking to Chloe herself about Chloe struggling with all this supernatural stuff and everything, Auntie Maze decided the best place for her to be was at Linda's house. So she moved in and said, right, where can I put all my knives?
Oh, no. Yeah, she brought knives, and she goes, where can I put all my knives? Obviously, you need me. I need to be here now. Now I've seen the baby and all that. It's like, yep, Auntie Maze.
And she was like, I like that, Auntie Maze. Because Amanda was a bit like, I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that she needs to be here, and, you know, it's probably not the good. And she's like, no, I think it's great. You know, the more support, the better. And especially, obviously, from these supernatural beings, they're the best people to have around her. So she's like, Auntie Maze, I like that. Oh my God, this is going to be so funny going forward. This weird dynamic with an angel, a demon, and a human, and an angel baby. It sounds like it's a sitcom. It's like
an angel, a demon, and a baby.
Angel, a demon, and a human, and a baby,
and a Nephilim.
So it's the basis of a really.
That's
it's
a
sitcom,
show.
isn't it? It's a sitcom waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was really, really good. So I really enjoyed that episode, and I'm really looking forward to what comes next.
Indeed.
But that's for next time. So next time we will discuss more Lucifer. So yeah, as we mentioned at the top of the show, by next week's episode, we'll have 2 supernatural, celestial, devil and heaven inspired TV shows to discuss, because obviously Good Omens is also to do with heaven and hell and the devil and angels and demons and stuff. So that's going to be quite fun.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
So there we go. So that's the end of Lucifer. So now we move on to the final thing that we're going to be discussing, and that was what I personally think is one of the best episodes.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This was great.
It was excellent, wasn't it?
Fear and Loathing on the planet of Kitson.
Yep.
So,
go on then, you start.
I mean, straight off the bat, I will say, as soon as I saw the title and when we started watching the episode, basically, I had this conversation with Zoe about, it's like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And that theme continued throughout the episode. There were several things that were related to that movie.
It was so funny.
So we had...
It was a really good episode.
Fitz and Enoch were going to this planet of Kitson, and they got held up, didn't they? They got held up by these 2 guys. So these 2 guys were looking at everything, and they were like, oh, you're the guys that freed these people, and you took out the controller, and this, that, and the other. And it looked like they were fanboys. They were like going, oh, you're amazing, you did this, I can't believe this. And they're like, yeah. And then they were like, so you're basically going to want to keep your heads down from now on. And they're like, well, yeah, I suppose at the moment. Oh, okay, well, in which case, we're taking your ship and everything on it. And they pull guns out on them. And they're like, no, we can't. You can't do this. We need it. We need to do this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, sorry, can't do that. Can't let you have it. And Fitz said to them, well, you've got to give me something. So they gave him 1 chip. Yeah. And they said, you can use this. Go down there, go out to the planet.
Got to go and gamble. Gamble your way and see how much money you can earn in order to get your ship back.
Everybody's got a chance. Go and see how lucky you are. And there was also a little bit, this is important for later on, there were these weird things, these weird food stuffs
like sweets or something, well, the candies they
And-
look like. And they offered them and them. They didn't want them, did
Fitz
they?
was going to have one, and Enoch basically advised him against it and said they are
Pointed
not
out.
suitable for a Terran human physique. They're not really best suited, and especially not on an empty stomach and all of this lot. And he said, so I would advise against it. So Fitz was like, okay, don't worry about it then, I won't have one.
They didn't bother with it.
So they were resigned to the fact that, okay, there's nothing we can do here, we're going to have to go. So they headed in, and it turns out this planet is like Las Vegas. It's a casino planet, and it's got, this, again, it was almost like a little Star Wars reference. It was this den of, this hive of scum and villainy. It's like a really dodgy place with brothels and all sorts of gambling, anything your heart desires. So they had this one chip, and they were like, we need to try and work out a way to make this into more money.
And because they went into the gambling area, their faces flashed up on a screen somewhere else, and a guy looked like some sort of hitman. He teleported off somewhere. It's like he's got an alert on them, like they've been noticed.
Yeah, that was interesting. You had that.
Remember those guys?
Yeah, you had that little separate scene with this weird dude with all this technology, and like you said, it brought up. It was almost like a wanted poster of the two of them.
Bounty.
And what was
hunter.
really cool? That disc device? So he had this disc. He threw it on the floor. He stood on it, and it like swirled around, and then it shrank. He disappeared into it, and it flew off like a frisbee. And I was like, "Whoa, that was so cool! What was that?" Because that was the other thing with the guys that took their ship. They also pulled up the picture and said, "Oh, you're famous." And it's like, how are they? I was confused at that point. I thought the thing with the controllers only just happened. How are they already like wanted men?
That was interesting. They got to gamble, so they went off to the gambling casino.
Oh, this was brilliant.
I'll let you talk
it was
about
just so
this.
funny because you had the whole thing where they had to check their weapons, and there's this woman, she's like, no, cyborgs, androids, synthetic beings, the artificial intelligence, this, that, and the other, and that there was a scanner thing to make sure they could prove this. So Fitz was then getting a bit edgy about all of this, and Enoch just strode forward, walked straight through the scanner and out the other side. And he's like, well, and then he said to him, how did you pass the scan? And he's like, I'm not any of these things. I'm a Chromicron. A Chromicon is designed, Chronicom is designed to mimic the anatomy of a human. All my internal organs are fully functioning. So for all intents and purposes, for scanning, I am as real as you are. I'm as human as you are, and all this stuff. And I was like, okay. And he's like, oh, that's really interesting to know. So they go into this casino, and they're looking around, and Fitz is just really stressed. He's really like, what are we going to do? Enoch's ordering them really expensive drinks. He's like, we haven't got any money. Why are you doing all this? Yes, maybe I should have picked something slightly less extravagant. And I will say to you, do you not think that Enoch is the Marvel, well, in terms of TV shows, not in terms of everything else, but in TV shows, he is the Marvel equivalent of Brainy in Supergirl.
Oh, Brainy, yeah.
The way
definitely.
he speaks, the way he's so deadpan, the computational logic because of him being like a machine being. I watch it and I'm just like, he's like Brainy from Supergirl. There's so much about him that reminds me of Brainy. But it was just so funny.
He's so funny. He said, all right, I know how to play this game. It was a card game, wasn't it? He goes, I'm going to play this. So he's doing really well. And then he let his guard down, and the guy next to him said something like, I'm probably not going to play on this one or something. So he's thinking, I'm in now. And as Fitz goes, no, just leave now. We've won lots of money. We're winning. And he goes, no. He like trusted him, didn't he? Like, you said you're not going to go for it.
Kindred
I'll go for it. Yeah. And then, because he played his hand, and the other guy said, oh, I'm actually in on this one. And he beat him, and he went, but you said. He was like disappointed, like, you said you weren't going to. And he was like horrified that somebody lied to him.
The guy was like, you might be smart when it comes to cards, but you're really dumb when it comes to reading people. Didn't he? He said, that's what he said to him.
So he said, what are we going to do now? Yeah. And he was asking, he kept saying, you're my best friend and all this stuff. That was funny.
I love that whole bit when he said about the amount of time they've spent together, and he said, I feel how close I feel and how fond I am of you. And he said, I think you are my best friend. And I was like, oh, bless him. And then Fitz never reciprocated.
Fitz would reciprocate it.
Because
he said, what are we going to do now? And I said, I don't know. So before they showed any more of that, we had Daisy wanted to go home. Gemma wanted to stay. They landed on this place where, what's his name? And they landed on the planet that he should have landed on, and they couldn't leave at the time because this guy said, "No, you're docked now. You're in the system." Da 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 da. So they were like, they captured the old boy, said, "Look, come on, we don't want to be here. We need to leave. Here's our weapons." Blah blah. And somehow they found out that he wasn't on that planet, and that bounty hunter turned up on their ship.
Yeah. So that bit, yeah, like when we got seeing them, it was straight after the moment from the last episode where they'd walked in to that location. There was all the arguing going on about what they'd done and how they were going to get home and this, that, and the other. And then they got the transmission. Weird little man with glasses, strange little alien bureaucrat who had to come aboard and log them and everything, even though they said they were leaving. No, you can't leave. You're in the system now. And while he was questioning them, Gemma asked him, just thought, I'm going to ask him. So she pulled her phone out and showed a picture of Fitz and said, "We're looking for this man. He may have come through here. He goes by the name of Leopold Fitz." And the little man got really panicky and said, "You should not have mentioned that name."
He's guilty of tampering with time.
And the next thing, the bounty hunter shows up, like straight away, like off the back of them saying that, he appears.
His name was mentioned. He was there, started shooting them.
And then they managed to get the better of him because luckily Davis wasn't present. So Davis was able to sneak in and like clonk him over the head and tie him up and like handcuff him. And then when they questioned this bounty hunter guy, it turned out, no, it's got nothing to do with the killing of the controller. He said, this man is wanted for messing with the natural flow of time. He cannot be allowed to be because all of time and all of reality is at stake, and that they are complicit. Because they said they were there to help him and he's their friend and stuff, he was like, well, you're just as complicit as they are then. And about Enoch being this rogue chronicom, and basically that's why they need to be captured and they need to be stopped because what they're doing is fundamentally affecting time in some way. So it's like that's a really interesting thing that's been added into the mixture of stuff going forward. So then we got our reason, our explanation.
So how did they find out where he'd gone? What happened there? How did they find out the planet he'd gone to?
The little guy had informed them about the other ships that had been docked in the region recently, so he gave them the location of this ship. And so then they went to check it out in the hopes that maybe Fitz was there, and they came across...
They said they were going to Kitson, or also known as Florida. Oh.
So they went there, and they found the guys that had stolen the ship from Fitz, and they were trying to be really cocky, and obviously Daisy was using her powers, and she broke the guy's fingers, and all this. That was great, and they were like, "How are you doing this?" And she's like, "We're asking the questions. Have you seen this man? Yeah, we've seen it. We gave him a chip. He's gone off to Kitson and everything." And then before they left, they noticed the snacky things, and they were like, "Ooh, we're really hungry. We haven't eaten for a while." So they all took one. Well, Gemma and Daisy took one each, and Davis took several. And then they sent Davis back to the ship and said, "Look, we'll handle this. We'll go on ahead. You go back to the ship with Piper and wait for us," which was a good thing. So they then headed off, and then when we saw them headed, oh my god, it was so funny. They were,
because it looked like they were climbing a stairway, but it seemed like they were struggling. It was like, what are they doing? And they could climb up the steps. They were going up this place. Everything was like, whoa, they couldn't walk, could
they? And everything was really psychedelic and
funny.
Blurry.
They were talking really
and
weird.
It turned out they were tripping balls. They were off their faces because whatever this thing was they ate was like a real big hallucinogenic drug, and they were just absolutely off their faces, tripping. It was so funny. They were, oh my god, it was like the biggest acid trip or stoner high or whatever. And it was just so funny watching them, and they were just like being really funny, and they recognised that
they were drinking on the top of it, weren't they
went to the bar, and they were like, they forgot why they were there. Why are we here? I know, it's ladies' night, and they're like, woo, ladies' night, and they were ordering these weird drinks and telling each other how much they love each other, and Daisy talking about their friendship and what she thought of Gemma to begin with, and Gemma telling her, "I love you, you're my best friend," and they were both crying, and it was like two girls at the end of a long night in a nightclub that have had lots to drink, and they get all emotional with each other, and they were like, I love you too, and all this kind of stuff. And it was when they bit with the drink, wasn't it? And there was a little dancing Fitz monkey that she was seeing on the end of her straw.
Yeah. That's what made her wake up and realise.
Like, Fitz, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, they realised why they were there. Trying to they were trying to get themselves out of what they were in, if you know what I mean, their sort of state. She wandered off, didn't she, at one point, and ended up under.
Daisy was talking and she was looking straight ahead, and then she reached out and she was like stroking hair, and the other person sat next to her had their head down.
Oh yeah. And there was this big guy, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it was the same guy. It was the guy from the poker table from earlier on.
Oh, the one that beaten
yeah, and
Enoch.
then he looked at her and she was like, I feel really connected to you right now. And then he turned his head and went, yeah, me too, babe. So, are we going back to your ship or mine? And then she was like, what? So she was like, okay. So she got up and stumbled away, and she was then walking around this nightclub casino place looking for Gemma, and she couldn't find her anywhere.
There's all these guys leaning on something, and then she spotted the socks.
Yeah, where did her shoes go?
She goes, don't worry, guys, I got this one. And then she crawled under it as well, didn't she?
It was so funny.
To watch it, it was hysterical. Any guys listening to this, got to watch this episode, even just that episode. It's so funny. If you've never watched it before, just watch in isolation. This episode. Episode 3. Episode is so bonkers, and it's just so funny to watch. It's really, really good. So, yeah, that's when then there was this weird noise. And they were like, can you hear this noise and all of this stuff? So we then got, in between this, we had got this bit where Enoch said, there's another way. There are other ways of us earning money. And he first said about the brothel. Oh, he said, we can work in the brothel. And he said, no, that's not a good idea. And he's like, but I am programmed in over 150 ways of different lovemaking techniques or whatever. And he's like, we are not doing that, Enoch. No chance. And he's like, well, but it would be a great way of earning money. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. And he's like, oh, well, okay, very well. So he said, well, there are other ways and there are other games and things like that. And it turned out there was this game where he could use his brain. But the problem with this game is that you are effectively sold into slavery and you have to win. It's not a case of it would be good if you win. It's a case of you have to win. Yeah. And if you win, you win the money, but you also win your freedom. If you lose the round or the game, or if you, what did he say? If you get a 14, then the consequences are not very good. We got to see that in action because they had this table, and again, it was almost like 21, wasn't it? Like they were playing that. They had this guy sat around the table. And he was locked in. They're locked in, sort of locked into the chair. So Fitz had to play the game, and Enoch went down the other end, and he said he'd be sending him signals. He said he would hum at a frequency that only humans could hear. Yeah, that's it. That would advise him whether he should hit or whether he should stick. So he was like, okay. So they proceeded with the game, and Fitz was doing fine to begin with. And that was the noise, that weird humming noise, because then under the table, what was it that... They thought it was like a whale song or something. And they were like, maybe it's a secret communication. Somebody's trying to communicate with us and all this stuff. And they're like, why can nobody else hear this? It must be a secret thing. It must be Fitz. Fitz must be doing this. He's trying to get in touch with us and all of this stuff. So that was really funny. So that was the connection there between them under the table and what was going on with Fitz. Yeah. And the sound. Fitz got caught cheating. Yes, because a very odd thing happened and it all seemed to happen simultaneously because we got Davis, and Davis was completely off his face because he had ate more than one of those puff things. So he was seeing spiral shapes, and Piper was trying to talk to him, and he was like stroking her face, and he was like, she was talking in slow motion as far as he was concerned. He said something about, what did he say? Something about giraffes. He was on about all the giraffes that were in the room and things like that. And she's like, right. Yeah. Did they also have what you had? And he's like, well, I think so, but I had more. And she's like, right, you need to stay put. And he's like, but, blah, blah, blah. And she said, look, I need to try and resolve this. I need to try and get in touch with them. Unfortunately, the guy that they chained up had... Bounty hunter was getting away, wasn't he? Free, and because Davis was so high, he wasn't able to help him. Oh, God. He wasn't able to help her. The guy. And the guy had got into their
like communications room, and he had like and then it turned out he clearly wasn't a person. I mean, I know he wasn't a human because they're in space, but he wasn't a person because the tip of his finger had opened and there was all this wiring that was plugged into their computer. So he was either
he sort of hotwired it.
downloading something or he was communicating. So they tried to get him away and they shot at him and it blew up one of the computers, and he used his disc thing and he frisbeed on out of there. So it was like, well, great, he's escaped. And did they say he's downloaded information?
Yeah, I think they said he got some information off the computer.
So that all seemed to tie in with everything else that was going on. So you had all of this weird noise in the club. Then Fitz is playing his hand. Things are getting dicey because the guy next to him had just had his go and got 14. So this thing came out of the table in front of him and impaled him. So it's like, okay, so that's the reason you don't get a 14, because you'll be killed instantaneously by like a harpoon. He was then getting really anxious because Enoch stopped working.
Yes.
And so he was stalling. He just
went in. Yeah, he sort of like got closing down, didn't he?
So Fitz was stalling for as long as he possibly could. The guy was like, you need to say what you're going to do. And he was like, to stick or to twist? That is the question and all of this lot. But then this alarm went off, and the alarm basically signified the fact that there was a robotic creature of some description in the club.
Yeah, so like a fire alarm sort of thing, wasn't it? So everyone had to evacuate.
For them two, the big guy, the dealer guy, said, "You're not you two. You came in together. It's clearly something to do with you. You're staying here. Yeah. I need to go and get Mr. Kitson." So that was interesting because the planet's called Kitson. And there's also a person called Kitson that owns it all. And he said, I need to go and get Mr. Kitson. He'll know what to do about all this and how he's going to deal with you. So he went off. Then Fitz was trying to activate, like get Enoch. And Enoch was like, well, if I shut down, that can only mean one thing. He's basically been...
he's been
excommunicated from the Chronicons. They have cut him off. So he said the only reason that there would have been that noise and I shut down is if they disconnected me from the rest of my people. And he said it must be because of me helping you, that I've done something wrong, that they've kicked me out, they've excommunicated me. And then he got really maudlin and he was really depressed and he was going on about how stupid he was, banging his head on the table. Again, it was sad, but it was also funny seeing him go through, I am worthless, my life is useless. And
is that when Fitz told him he was his best friend?
And he said, you're just saying that because you want me to help you. And he's like, no, I mean it. You've been there for me and this, that, and the other. And then he helped him concoct a plan because he was like, what is that awful smell? And it was the guy that had been killed.
Sulfur.
Yeah, his 70% of his bodily fluids are sulfur. So Fitz's scientific...
said they could use it to get out of the room.
Yeah, Fitz's scientific brain kicked in, didn't
funny.
it? And what did he do?
Pulled his arm off.
And smeared...
And it's so funny seeing him trying to get smearing the stuff on the door. Get out of the room.
Oh, that was so funny. So, also, the other thing connected to this triple threat of things that all happened quite simultaneously was these guys show up in the club with guns, and they're, oh no, this isn't good. They're clearly here for Fitz. This isn't good at all. Gemma goes off to try and find out where Fitz is. Daisy's like, I've got this. Oh, before she went, though, Daisy and Gemma worked together because Daisy was trying to use her powers, and because she's like off her face, they're all going everywhere. And she's like, whoops,
oh, so funny, wasn't it?
Oh dear, and all this stuff. Let me just, if I squint my eyes, I should be able to focus and all this lot. And Gemma was controlling her, so Gemma was holding her and swiveling her around.
Yeah, it's all like directing her and putting her in the right direction, wasn't she?
Then she said, look, you go, I've got this. So you've got these three guys, and even though she was like tripping, she was still able to kick all their asses, wasn't she?
Yeah. And then some more appeared, and she goes, really? What? And started kicking some more ass.
So she just kept fighting away, and that was really, really funny because she was rolling over the tables and going, woo, and all this kind of stuff.
The Gemma went off.
Yeah, Gemma went off to find Fitz, and you had that bit, though, when she met the big guy, the big green guy. He's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, I'm here to save Leopold Fitz. I believe he's the other side of that door. And what did she say? That I believe, and he's like, what makes you think that? Well, because the dolphin something or other. What did she say? The singing dolphin something's in my head told me or something.
Yeah, some hallucination.
And he
thing,
looked at her and he went, "Lady, he said you're really high or something like that." And she's like, "Oh," no. And then he's like, "You're about her being human and stuff." And he said, "Whoa," he's like, "You really need to go and sleep it off." He's like, "I need to see him," and all of this stuff. Then that was when the obviously the door blew up, didn't it? And like
Yeah.
knocked the guy out, didn't it? Didn't the door like blow him out the way?
I think it did actually, yeah. And they got out and she saw him, and then the bounty hunter
Yeah,
turned
because
up
you
again.
had that moment where it was like, "Yay, they've been reunited," and they look in, she's really happy, and he's like, "Gemma," and they look like they were just about to move towards each other, and then, as you said, the bounty hunter guy, his frisbee thing appeared. He grabbed Fitz. She went, "No!" And then he disappeared into the frisbee thing and was gone.
And Enoch was annoyed and said, "You shouldn't
Yeah,
be here."
Gemma Simmons, you should not be here. And it turns out, that
It's
was
why.
the other thing, it turned out that the reason we knew that those guys that came into the club were also Chromicon hunters was he said what happens when that noise goes off. It basically means that because he said there are different types of Chromicons that do different jobs. Mine is I'm an archivist. I monitor timelines, things like that. I study history. There are others that are hunters. When somebody is deemed as to have gone rogue, they send the hunters out. That's what these ones. That's why we knew these guys that came into the club were clearly connected to the bounty hunter.
Oh, the ones that ones that Daisy was.
That's how we knew they were all connected. And then it's like that's why they are after both Fitz and Enoch then, because of what he is, what he's done, and what they are either going to do or what they have done. Maybe it's all tied into the whole time stuff that they did in the previous season. Or maybe it's something that's yet to happen, and because these people monitor time and the timelines, they are aware of something, so they're like, you need to be stopped.
Yeah.
So now Enoch at least can now team back up with the others, fill them in on everything that's going on, let them know what they're up against, and then they can go and try and save Fitz. Because I assume their lead here is that Enoch is going to know, well, when the hunters capture their prey, what they do with them is X, Y, and Z, which will be that will be their trail of breadcrumbs so that they can go after wherever Fitz has been taken.
But it was good just to have a standalone episode just all about this, wasn't it? Just that's what I say. I like programs where we know they're all connected to the other program, but when it's in bits of, like we talked previously in other programs where they've backwards and forwards, it's so much easier just to go, right, this is what happened here. It doesn't take anything away from the main show because it's all going to link eventually, isn't it? But you can focus on it properly, can't you, as well? And it was hilarious. I laughed so much watching it.
Yeah, me too. I was just in stitches. And Zoe was the same, just laughing so much at the whole thing. It was brilliant. Now, we also, though, have to discuss the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. logo comes up and it says, "Will continue."
Yes.
So it comes back on and we're back on Earth and we're back in the scrapyard. And we see Sarge stood outside with his humongous gun thing that he had last episode. And the big dude comes out and stands next to him and he says about being ready. And they're looking up at the sky, and then he says, "How many of them do you think there are?" And you think they're talking about stars, and he says, "What, stars?" And he says, "No." And then he shoots this beam, and it creates almost like a grid in the sky, and there's all these weird little points of light. So it's like, what is that all about? What is this? What is this grid thing? And then they have like a little monitor device, which shows Earth from like a space view, I suppose. And it's got all these points on it, all these bright lights, these dots. And they're looking at that, and she says, "Oh, there's more than I thought there would be, or more than I realised, or something." And then was it then Coulson said, "It's time, let's go and make a mess," or something like that. It's time to make a mess. And then that's how it ended. So it's like, what?
I know, it's like, what? The on about? Yeah. What are they? Where are they going?
What are they doing? What is that in the sky? What were they looking at? What is there more of? What? I have so many questions.
I know. I love it when they do that little bit because it always leaves you, I want to see you next week.
So it was just awesome. Just one of my favourite episodes of this show altogether. Like in the whole
Yeah,
6 seasons,
forever,
this
yeah.
was one of my all-time favourite episodes. It was just so entertaining and hilarious, and like all the visuals of showing them being off their faces. Like I said, anybody that's seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas will be able to spot the homages and the little nods and winks to that movie. It was just great. It was just all in all, it was just so much fun. They must have had so much fun filming it.
They must have liked doing a really light-hearted sort of, although there was a story involved in it. But the funny parts, they must have loved. They must love it when it gets a little bit more like, yeah, this is so funny. Can't wait. This is going to be funny filming this after they did it and everything, and probably the outtakes. And I'd love to see the outtakes on that one. Hilarious. But yeah, it was really good. All in all, really good.
So yeah, let us know in the comments if you watched this. Let us know what your thoughts were. Did you really like this episode in the same way that we did? Did you find it really funny? And even if you didn't watch it at the time, maybe go and watch it as we mentioned, and yeah, give us some feedback and tell us what you thought when you saw it. And the same with Lucifer.
Yeah, see the visual of it. You have to see it as well to actually appreciate what we just said.
Absolutely. But there we go. So that's it. That's a wrap. That's everything for this week. So as per usual, as mentioned at the beginning, leave us a like, so click that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, leave comments as mentioned, go in my description box, follow me on Twitter, the link's in there, and also if you want to support the channel, there are 2 methods in which you could do so. That would be fantastic if you can. If you can't, then you can't, but any help would be appreciated. Next week, hopefully the show will be a little bit longer because we'll have more stuff to discuss, but for now, that'll do us. So thank you very much again, Mum. Hope you've enjoyed this.
Yes, it was good. I didn't cough too much, I don't think, so that was good.
Yeah, it was.
I was tempted, but I didn't. But yes, all in all, very good. And like I say, next week we've got an extra show to add in. So as weeks go on, we'll get more in it again. But yeah, brilliant. Loved it.
So that'll do it for us, guys. So all I have to say is, you take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, bye-bye.